July 13th, 2023. This is the S&P 500 E-Futures Mini on the 2002 chart using the NinjaTrader 8 platform. You can look down at the descriptions below where you can see where I thought I saw setups as well as where I took my trades. On the chart, these little squared ones are where I took my trades, and these non-squared ones are where I thought I saw setups, and the asterisk ones I thought were possibly high probability, potentially good trades to have taken. I took a total of 3 trades today, and there was actually quite a few setups that I saw, but the 3 trades that I took, for one reason or another, they weren't very good entries after in hindsight. 2 of them I was just anticipating the trade, and unfortunately on all 3 trades I took a loss. So after the 3rd trade, which happened right around here, I decided that that's it, I should stop trading, because after 3 trades and all 3 losing, I didn't want to risk losing any more money, because that has in the past triggered me to just overtrade, which I was already starting to do. And I knew I just wasn't in tune with the market. My thinking wasn't clear for one reason or another. And I should just sit back and let the day go by, but continue watching and just mark up the trades. So that's what I did. I'm going to go through the trades now. There's only a few pieces of economic data that came out today around the 5:30 Pacific Standard Time, which is right around here. Yesterday was a CPI data. Today was a core PPI, as well as the unemployment claims. And as you can see, compared to yesterday at 5:30, which happened right around here, today, the markets didn't really react too much to that data that came out. This is the pre-market lows and the pre-market highs. For the most part, in the pre-market, after prices broke out, they pretty much just stayed in this blue trading range. And then toward the latter half of the day, it kind of rallied. And I did see 2 measured moves, or 2 legs up, one leg up here, and then a second leg came up to here. So it made and completed the measured move. Overall, the trades that I saw, they were all kind of spread out. Volume was so-so today, but I thought in hindsight, after looking and reviewing my trades, the trading today wasn't actually that bad, except I did some foolish things and lost in all 3 trades, which were, well, they were just kind of stupid brain fart trades that I should never have taken or should have been more patient on and not anticipate. Now, I remember yesterday I also did some anticipation as well, and I was rewarded for it, which were not good. It was one of them was not a good trade, but I took it in anticipation and it paid me off, and that's definitely not the way to go. So I'm not gonna drag this on too much longer. I'm just gonna go into the trades, try to go through this quickly. Instead of just walking through bar by bar, I just kind of go through where I saw the setups. Hopefully it goes a little bit faster. So in the pre-market, prices were kind of trending up. After it broke out, I still was thinking it might be in a trading range, but then when it started consolidating in here, I just kind of abandoned this pre-market highs and lows trading range and started working on this blue channel. The first trade that I actually took, the first setup that I saw, was actually a new high here. The first entry long pulls back. This is the second entry long. So this second entry long, it hasn't formed yet until it triggers right here on this candle. So this is actually where the second entry long triggers. But when it triggered, I didn't like the looks of the candle. It was too doji-ish. And when this one came, it opened here and it actually flashed up. And I was afraid I was going to miss the trade. So instead of putting it 1 tick above this original signal bar, I actually put it 1 tick below, hoping to get and reduce my risk and hopefully ride it up to the top, which was the previous high here. So this is where the blue arrow, as you see here, it was a late entry, definitely. The signal bar here, technically, this is the signal bar. You could treat it this as a signal bar. It was so-so. And then when it triggered, it wasn't a very convincing trade. I thought EMA was holding, but in hindsight, there was just barely enough room to scalp out to the top and before hitting the most recent high. So in hindsight, I should have skipped it. As you can see, it flashed up and then stopped me out here. Second trade I took in short order was right after the first one. It was a new low here. You get the first entry short here. It's technically your signal bar, but the trigger bar was pretty helpful, except this isn't a very good setup because this trigger bar, you don't really know if the EMA is going to hold now. So there's not enough room to scalp to the bottom or to the EMA. But when it came down, I saw this as a failed second entry short, which technically it is. First entry short here, and the second entry short, excuse me, first entry short here, second entry short here, and it fails by 1 tick, but it ends up being a trap because when this next candle formed, it actually opened high, and I put my, again, trying to reduce risk, I put my entry one tick above the original failed second entry, which is right here. I got filled, and prices flashed down, tops around, continued chopping all the way down, and I got stopped out right here where my stop loss was. So in hindsight, this failure actually never really triggered. So this is what I call the failed second entry short from here, first entry short, second entry short. It never really failed actually because they just made a micro triple top here, but none of these candles actually broke above to call it a failure. So when I thought it was a failure, I just entered early on anticipation, and I was pretty much buying at the high of this range. And it's definitely not enough room to scalp out to the top or hit the high. And EMA was kind of holding, but it was flat, so it wasn't really a good indication or a good supportive indicator to be using. So this trade actually should have just been skipped, but I think I was probably a little eager to try to get this loss back. And this is too choppy if you kind of zoom out and look at it. Then the third setup I saw, but I didn't take, I saw this is a new high here. Clearly this is a new high. It's a first entry long, comes all the way down here. This is the second entry long. It's also a failed breakout because my trading range was actually up here at one time. I was treating this as a trading range. I treated this as a breakout, and this is actually also a breakout. So there's actually a failed breakout second entry long. But I also had this ascending channel going up from here to here to here, touching, moving up. So I didn't take this trade though because the signal bar here isn't very good. If it was more bullish, maybe. Also the trigger bar, after it flashed up, clearly making a second entry long, it pulled all the way back more than 50%. So it kind of came all the way back to the highs of the previous bar. So this signal bar wasn't very encouraging either. So I wasn't really sure, so I left it alone. But as you can see, the next candle flashed up really strong. So by the time this candle closed, it's definitely too late to try to take this trade here because you don't know that it's going to come all the way back up to here, touch the top, and come back down. Because after this big reaction, this next candle would have given you a little bit more nervousness had you entered. And then it just happened that this one flashed up, touched the top, and came back down. But of course, you don't know that in real time. And it's hard to say you would have known, or for me to say I would have known trading this in real time. So the next setup that I saw actually shows up treating this as the new high. It's a first entry long, pulls back. This is the second entry long here. The second entry long is a good signal bar. There's two clear legs down. One leg down, pulls back, a second leg down, and it is below the EMA though. And potentially it could be treated as a failed breakout of this range because at this point, after so many overshoots, I actually dragged this down to about right here, treated as a little bit wider range. This could have been a failed breakout as well, but just like this one here, I wasn't too sure because it didn't break below, but it also didn't go all the way up. So this is actually an inside candle. So I wasn't sure if I was potentially trying to pick the bottom and trying to, excuse me, I wasn't 100% sure if, because there's just barely enough room to scalp out of this EMA, because I wasn't sure after this form and then flashes up if this was worthwhile trade to have taken. But as you can see, I actually took my third trade right here, which was my mistaken interpretation of a higher low, because it's actually a first entry short right here. So when I saw this second entry long, I was thinking, okay, wait for a confirmation. I actually saw this come down, this big candle here as the higher low, and it closed so bullish. I said, I'm going to try to reduce my risk by taking one step back, one tick back. I got filled here, and as you can see, it flashed all the way down, and on the same candle stopped me out. Now this wasn't actually a higher low because this candle here never broke above, and I should have waited to see where this candle closed, and ideally it should have closed higher than the tail of this one as it did on this one, because this is where the real higher low actually was. So I actually entered here, which was a mistaken read of the chart. I was too eager because this is just the first entry short. Prices could continue moving down, which it did, and I just was impatient on that one. After this third loss, I decided I wasn't going to take any more real trades because obviously I'm not reading the charts correctly today and I don't want to risk losing any more. So I kind of stepped back, just watched the charts for the rest of the day, marked up what I could see. And it's kind of a good way to kind of reset my mind to not over trade. So the next setup I saw, which is a second entry long failed second entry short. So it's a new high here, first entry long, second entry long. It's also a new low here, first entry short all the way down to here, pulls back up, the second entry short. But then it looks like it's about to fail, and it does fail on this candle. But this setup, it looks like it's two good setups, which it is, but to go long. However, they both form below the EMA, and the bias is clearly bearish with not that much room after this candle to go scalp before the EMA. So in other contexts, this would have been a decent setup to take, but just the way it was setting up below the EMA, I didn't like it, so I left it alone. Turns out it would have worked, but of course you don't know that in real time. There's a new high here. It's first entry long, comes back to the second entry long. Now, I actually thought this was potentially a trade that might have been worth taking. So even though the signal bar is a doji, this next candle here, which is the trigger bar, closed very bullish. And it did create the second entry long here. And I saw this as one move up, pulled back, second move up, pulls back. And technically right here, it fails on the second entry short. And it's right at the EMA, even though EMA is flattening out, it's also the bottom of the trading range, or just came off the bottom of the trading range. So I thought this trade, although it's a little more aggressive, probably was maybe a worthwhile trade to take because there's enough room to make it back to the top. As you can see, it would have worked out. If you wanted to wait for a higher low, which would have been right here, it would have been too late for this particular trade. Prices then continue. This is where I grouped this as just one big high, even though this is a higher high. I just said from here, it's first entry long, pulls back, second entry long here. The second entry long isn't that good though, because the signal bar again is just doji, and it doesn't really give you clear guidance. The tug of war is too strong. But the next bar is this trigger bar, which closed very nicely, very bullish. It looks like it's moving right back into this blue trading range. However, there's not enough room from the top of this candle to the EMA. And EMA is flattening out, but I do take it into account just in this instance, just to be a little more cautious because it was kind of acting as some kind of resistance previously right here, even though it acted as support. So it's hard to really know which way it was going to go. But since I'm approaching the EMA from the bottom, I treat it more as a potential resistance. So I would have skipped this trade. I wasn't trading at that point anymore. And I do see a higher low here because this is a first entry long, second entry long, and then here is technically your higher low, and it formed above the EMA. And there were three previous attempts to break this line right here, which I'll draw, which was the 43, 45, 30. Let's see, 45, 30, 25. So here is one attempt, two attempts. Actually, if you just count this coming down, it's first attempt, second attempt, made it another third attempt. And so right here, taking this higher low on a long felt risky because there's not enough room to scalp out. This resistance could hold and push prices back down. So I left that alone. Prices continue moving up. Here's where I saw first entry long, second entry long. I thought this was actually a good possible trade to have taken. It is a pretty decent signal bar. It bounced off and held. Well, it bounced off and it was holding the EMA was holding the previous channel, which was this thing. It broke out and made one attempt to go up, and this could be counted as a second attempt to make a new high because this uptrend still wants to test this high, which it did. So if you took this entry one tick above, it would have been enough room to scalp out and get out of your trade in time. Again, I didn't take this trade though, and just kind of left it alone. Just to be clear, I didn't take any more trades for the day, actually. So there's a new high here, first entry long, second entry long. This candle is actually a little off. The second entry long, I thought was asterisk as another potentially good trade because it's also a good signal bar. EMA is continuing to hold. This does seem like it's touching the bottom of this channel. Now, this channel is kind of big, but it has been confirmed 2-3 times, plus potentially a fourth time. I thought it as one key entry point, a second key entry point, and this is just enough room for a quick scalp trade. If you try to go for more, you likely would have been stopped out. So I thought this was worth a possible trade. So I just chalk it up for more experience next time. I saw this as a new high here. It's the first entry long, comes all the way down. This is where second entry long is. I don't know why my labels are off slightly. The second entry long isn't a good trade because this candle is too doji. It doesn't give you clear direction. It could have just continued downwards further. And by the time this candle closed, Again, it felt too late. It's very similar to this setup here. However, this setup's breaking into this range, and this setup is breaking out of this range. So it's not quite the same setup in the same context, so I left it alone. The prices continue moving up. I saw a potential second entry short right here, all the way from down here. So actually, this is where the new low was. Makes one big leg. You don't get a break low until you get to here. Comes down, moves all the way up. And this is where you get your second break for your second entry short. Now, this is a good signal bar, but there are no other key entry points. There is enough room to the EMA. The trade is kind of in the middle of nowhere, and it's trading off. You're going to try to short a strong uptrend, which felt like it'd be counter trend trading, which it would be. And there are two clear measured moves up. However, there's just not enough context. This channel hasn't been established yet. This is drawn much later. After I drew this one, I touched it here. That's where I saw that there's potentially a tie here. So you can't really treat this green channel as anything. So I saw this, but I didn't really think it was worth a safe trade to have taken. Get a new low here, first entry short, second entry short. Now this trade I thought was actually pretty good because this trade traps all the shorts that went short right after this candle when they saw this break lower one. They would have jumped in here and then it probably stopped everybody out and failed. So this was a pretty decent trade. It bounced off the EMA where it has been kind of supporting prices, and there's enough room to scalp out before the top. So if you entered, so after this, let's say you waited and this candle formed and closed, and you thought, okay, I want to enter long now. You could enter here, but now you're increasing your risk of getting stopped because this was the previous high. What I would have done is put my entry probably one tick above this green candle, which would have been 43.38.25, which is right here. And it's hard to know if I would have gotten filled. I could have been a little more ambitious and actually put it one tick above this guy, so probably about right here. And I would have gotten filled and there would have been enough room to scalp out. Then prices continue moving. I saw a new low here, first entry short, second entry short, failure. Again, this is very similar to this setup, or it kind of reminded me of that setup. This one, EMA wasn't touched, but looks like it's bouncing off, and there's enough room from here to here for a quick scalp out. And it's clear that this is an uptrend now. I also saw it as a new high here, first entry long, pulls back. This is technically where your second entry long is made. Then it made a new high, and I thought this could have also been treated as a higher low confirmation of the second entry long and a failed second entry short. So there are two things going for that trade. It is kind of getting late in the end of the day, but I thought this setup was kind of worth noting. It makes it up this blue line, which is the measured move off these two large legs. First leg up, pull back, second leg up. So it completed the measure move, then it flashed up. And at this time of day, it's just too late to take this trade. But I would have treated this as a potential fail breakout because once it made the measure move, there's probably going to be a small correction of some kind. But again, look, this is only like less than 20 minutes toward the end of the day. I didn't want to risk anything. So kind of approached into the close. And so that's kind of how I saw the charts today. It's there were trades there. I didn't think it was too difficult today. I mean, definitely I lost all three trades that I took, but in hindsight, I think the trades were there had I been more patient and disciplined with my rules, which I shouldn't have broken or I shouldn't have tried to outsmart the market by jumping in early, etc. So hopefully that was helpful.